Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another trek through Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. We're on volume 25, chapter 8. Finally getting some, as the title would lead you to believe for this chapter, some rest. After a lot of fighting, we're finally getting some rest. But yes, greatly appreciate you guys for stopping by for the premiere. Hey, chat. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Monday. Of course, after Mushoku Monday. But yes, as per usual, greatly appreciate you guys' support through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships, all that stuff. That is what keeps the lights going, keeps things going. As per usual, greatly appreciate you guys' support. Since I have recorded this before the next Mushoku Monday, I have no clue who gave me super chats and whatnot, so I can't give shoutouts. So instead, as per usual, like I usually do for this, I'm going to have to rely on old voiceover Kun. Take it over, voiceover Kun. Noah with 2 supers. Thank you so much, Noah. This is my name, okay, with a membership. Inferno Torch with 2 supers and 5 memberships. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Roy Smith with a super and a membership. Silver with a super and D-Lo with a super. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you guys so much. It means so much to me. Again, without you guys, none of this could happen. And like I said before, just for those that cannot support that way, I greatly appreciate you guys' kind words and sharing the stuff out, spreading the word for Mushoku Monday. It's because of you guys that this is all kind of grown into what it is. But with all that said, with all the mushy stuff out of the way, we have to get into chapter 8. As I mentioned last week, I did kind of pre-record all this stuff, so I have already gone into it. It's some really juicy stuff there. But with that said, let's just dive into it. Chapter 8, Rest. 3 days passed since the battle. The wounded were healed, and peace returned to the village. During those days, they rested and stayed on guard. They weren't doing nothing, but nothing notable happened. Those were truly peaceful, uneventful days. Zenoba was so worn out, he slept for more than half the time. Ruijerd was worried that he'd been badly wounded, but the doctor said it was ordinary muscle pain. He said it was the first he'd experienced it in his life, and recited his would-be last words.
It feels like my body's going to fall apart. Julie, I'm going to die soon. I've taught you all I can. Stay strong when I'm gone.
So bad, poor Julie. Julie wept, but nodded with determination. It was kind of funny. It's not funny, that's mean, dude. Reese even found himself running over, gripping his hand and saying, Zenoba, I'll complete the autonomous doll. I promise. I swear to God. Leave it to me. Let this power be as a satisfying nourishment, giving one who has lost his strength the strength to rise again, healing. After that, Zenoba stood, looking miraculously healthy. Then got to work repairing version 1. Julie gaped. Poor thing. So mean. So mean. Once in the village, Atofe was relatively subdued. Before long, she had the village building a wooden throne and was initiating the warriors in ways of battle. Didn't take long to take over. It wasn't anything serious. Even Eris joined in. Sanders seemed a bit embarrassed at her antics, but now and then, a shadow fell across his face. Of course, he'd be thinking about Alec. Eris asked him if he should give him the King Dragon Blade, but he dismissed it as a tool of war and told Ruijerd to do with it as he wished. Yeah, I don't see him wanting it, but there's a side of me that almost thinks that yes, he might want it just because his son wielded it. And yeah, there's a side of me right here where I do acknowledge that even if the only indication that we have of the relationship between the two of them is that yes, he was there when he was born, and it seems like at some point he came back and gave him a blade, or he could have handed the blade over to the mother to give to him when he's of age. We don't know how much time he spent with Alec, but it seems like it's enough that it is affecting him. And I think even if, again, in their race, in their lineage, they don't really stick around much, they're not always there present with the child, he could still see him as still his son, somebody that was born of his beloved. I mean, there's still a connection there. After a talk like that, Reese didn't exactly feel like picking it up. Reese wasn't one to talk. He was totally dependent on the magic armor, as he was. Yeah, there's almost a similarity here, but Ruijerd doesn't have this knack for underestimating people. He has a knack for getting careless, but not underestimating people. Still, Ruijerd felt like using the sword too much would be bad. Besides, he wasn't a swordsman. Give it to Eris. Give it to Eris. He struggled to wield it effectively. He had Orsted look after it for the time being. He could lend it out to people when he needed to. Ruijerd spent all day and every day with Norn, or more like, everywhere Ruijerd went, Norn followed like a duckling. We get it. Refugium, we get it. Seeing Ruijerd teaching her all sorts of things reminded Ruijerd of the time that he and Eris traveled with him. Aww. Norn was a diligent student. This is called diligent, right? Ruijerd didn't recall ever seeing that look on Norn's face before. It was like how she looked at people she admired, but not quite the same. Not that mattered. She could look at him how she liked. Ruijerd, dude, Perugius, you're so freaking clueless sometimes it's not funny, dude. Togo was a big hit with the women and children. When they'd first arrived, they'd feared him, but they've seen they'd gotten over that barrier. Reus guessed it was because of how he devoted himself to helping during the plague. Good old Doga. Lately, he had been whittling things like wooden dolls and playing with the kids. Damn, dude, why is Zenoba not like, oh, master, look, he's like us, like me. He looked like the picture of innocent the whole time. The kid stopped pelting Orsted with balls, so he seemed a little lonely. I could totally see that. Orsted liked it. The medical team said that Superds were progressing well, so they moved to researching the plague. They would collect samples from the food and would probably take them back to Asra to store for reference. Cliff, Ellenlise, and Ginger set off for the second city of Erilil at Reus's request. They were going to repeat their demands to the king as a condition for releasing the prisoners. I don't like that. Cliff, Ellenlise, and Ginger, at least send Sander with them. Like, what the hell? Like, none of them are that powerful of warriors. That's dangerous. I don't like that move. I don't know why he did that. That doesn't make any sense. Again, technically, Orsted is the end goal for the enemy, and Ruijerd's like right next to him. But they could easily end up dead if they run into somebody that Geese is working with. I don't like that. I don't like that. When I read it, I didn't like it. Reus needed someone who could receive the king's response. 2 superb warriors were sent, both shaven heads, along to serve as guards. Interesting they finally get back into that, because even Ruijerd had regrown his hair. Surprising they finally got back to doing that, again, because that's sort of something that kind of, again, according to the man god, symbolizes that curse and does technically affect people. And yes, it's based on the identity that people have gotten of what a Superd is. But if Geese hadn't called off his plans, he might try to pick them off one by one, so Reus couldn't relax. Even Reus is acknowledging right here that it's dangerous to send them off. What the hell, dude? Reus held, if something happens to them in the next coming chapter, I'm going to be so mad. Reus held a review meeting after the battle. He gave the Atofe hand back to Atofe. They have been so back and forth with this. I don't remember if I mentioned this earlier. They have been so back and forth with this. It's so bonkers. And it finally right here, it kind of cemented it for me. He gave the hand, singular, back to Atofe, and a healing magic scroll returned his right arm to its original form. Just his right arm? He tested it out on Eris's chest, giving it a squeeze. He got an uppercut right in his chin, and a half day was wasted. Just got knocked out. Now, again, he technically did have one of the remaining arms with him in the cave. And they could have like bundled it up and put in a backpack, and he just kept both arms. But it has been doing several times throughout the last few chapters, constantly saying one arm, singular, one arm, one arm. And so it kept confusing me as to what he was talking about. Yes, when he originally regained consciousness, he said both arms. His shoulders, his hands were black. He kept pointing out his hands, both. And yes, he looked over and one of the arms was still there, the one that had Orsted's trinket. So yes, he did have possession of one of the arms. The other arm was consumed. But as the chapters kept going on, it kept saying things singular. His Atofe arm. He has an Atofe arm. And it kept making me confused. Wait, did he have both of them was Atofe's arms? Or was just one? And right here, he goes, he had just his right arm. And again, it has done this before, saying it was only the right arm before now. And right here, it's saying one arm. He never at any point claimed that he reattached the other arm and healed it on. He wouldn't need to. If he uses one of these powerful scrolls, he can just return both of them. So it's kind of weird. It seemed like it couldn't make up its mind if it wanted to have both arms or just one arm. But right here, it's acting like it's just one arm. I'm going to assume it's probably lost in translation, and then at some point, he just reattached the other arm and regrew the other arm. He lost both, for sure. But I think he's been using both arms the entire time. He just only regrew one and reattached the other. But this is such a long period of time. That other arm should have been decayed to the point where you can't just reattach it. Again, he was asleep in that cave for a long time. Anyways, I think it's probably just bad translation. Then there was that spell. The spell that he'd used at the end of his fight with Alec. He thought it was probably gravity magic, But he wanted another clue. That fight had driven home just how powerful gravity magic was. It's that spark. He's got that spark now. He's got to go figure out gravity magic. It makes sense because, again, gravity magic, it's similar to the situation with the lightning. The lightning was like this big thing that Ruijerd was like, I got to figure this out. Because if I can electrocute somebody, even if they have a battle aura, they'll still get knocked out. They'll still get paralyzed. It's still something that gets around what this world uses as sort of an overall like defensive measure and physical boost measure. And here, yes, this is another thing. If I can just pick people up, get them, because he experienced it. I was weightless. I couldn't do anything. If it weren't for that absorption stone, he would have been sitting there waiting to get hit. That's literally what he was going to do to everybody. They got everybody picked up and just bam, hit them. They can't do anything. They can't defend against it. And yes, there's also the other fact that yes, he can fly. He can fly just like he did when the perv were trying to get to him to report to him. Whee! He had a lot to consider with teleportation circles too. If he went and set them up all over the place again, their opponent would use them too. He'd have to take precautions against that in the future. Yeah, it's sort of implying it like how he worded it earlier with Atofe, that she was using his, but I thought it said that it was from the ones from the war, but for some reason he's also implying it there. I don't know. But it makes sense. And yeah, that's probably how they got to his base. They probably knew where one of his circles was, teleported back to the office, went upstairs, attacked it. He'd have to take precautions against that in the future. Even after 3 days passed, the circles hadn't been recovered. On the second day, Ruijerd called Aramonfi, and he told him his family was safe. Why not just send somebody there through... Again, I don't know why he's not utilizing Perugius at all. At least send somebody with Aramonfi to go back there. Hey, Aramonfi, can you take Norn back over there to check out what's going on, get a report? Send Zenoba back there. Send somebody back there to check out what's going on over there. Send a non-combatant. I don't know why he's so against utilizing the Perugius as at least a way of getting somebody over there. And yes, the assumption is that Roxy went back there and she's working on fixing it. It's just taking a little bit longer. Even so, the recovery of the magic circles was slower than anticipated. Maybe there was a problem unrelated to the man god. That was concerning, but worrying too much wouldn't help. Just send somebody over then, or go over there really quickly. It's that quick. You could get back over there so freaking fast. What was it, like not even half a day from the monument that was up northeast of there? I don't know. It's weird. That was concerning, but worrying wouldn't help too much. So Ruijerd had to occupy himself by doing what he could. On the fourth day, Eris and Ruijerd went on a date, or rather, walked around the village. Eris had, unusually for her, spent the whole day after the battle sleeping like a log. Her lifestyle these days was regimented to a degree unimaginable when she was little. He hardly ever saw her take a nap, besides a rare moment of joining Linnea for her naps. Ruijerd thought about joining them, but with Linnea there, it meant sharing a bed with her. It felt like a form of cheating. What? Eris is open to it. What's wrong? When Eris was a kid, she'd nap in the stables all the time. Back then, she'd run her engine open full throttle 24/7, but she was still small and wasn't done growing, so she ran her tank dry. Now she had a tank with many times the capacity of those days. She didn't run dry anymore, yet she slept a full day. That was just how intense the battle had been. When she woke up, she was her old self. And yeah, again, that could apply to the whole aspect of mana and the battle aura. Yes, whenever Ruijerd uses a bunch of his mana, he loses consciousness. It could very well be the same case for her, having to replenish that mana. She caught a sight of the superb kids that walked around the town and spoke excitedly. They really got tails! She actually got one. She actually got one to let her touch it. And like, why didn't she see him the other day when they were there? It's like she's seen him for the first time. Like, this is the first time she's been in the village. She was in the village earlier. She was there for several days before Ruijerd got back. Anyways, she actually got one to let her touch it. The target was a girl. The superb were protective of children. If Ruijerd tried it, he'd get flogged. If he were to get flogged that way, he'd want Sylphie to dress up in the costume with a tail. Though she was probably done with his kinky crap. Back to Eris. Maybe it was seeing the Ruijerd after so long, or maybe she loosened up with the fighting being over for now. But Eris was so excited. It was like she was a kid again. However, as she was going around, she suddenly stopped. I think this is very interesting. This sticks out like a sore thumb now that I read this a second time. She was acting like a child again. Again, it really does seem like Eris has changed a lot. I mean, it was kind of something that stood out to me during the time of traveling in the conflict zone. She seemed like she was very stiff and she wasn't really expressive in doing things. And the assumption at the time was really the idea of she not wanting to cause Ruijerd's problems. She's matured. Just like going over to the Sword Sanctum. She's matured. She's trying to be tough. And a lot of that could be the idea of trying to make sure that Ruijerd knows that she's ready for anything. Always on alert. Her alert mode is like on overdrive to the point that she doesn't want to distract herself. So I think right here, Ruijerd is being truthful here. Seems like with the fight being over, or possibly seeing Ruijerd after so long, she's loosened up. She's excited. She's acting like she was when she was a kid. She's finally able to let her guard down a little bit. Not like she's fully unguarded, because there's still a threat, but she's finally able to let that down a little bit. Have a little fun, girl. This girl, it's a sad reality of this girl has not had a childhood. Ever since Displaced. Ever since the displacement incident, she has been fighting to survive. She's been alone, fighting to make sure that Ruijerd doesn't leave her behind, trying to get stronger so that she can be reliable, that she can help Ruijerd. She can be a part of the team, won't get left behind. Then when they finally get back up there, Orsted beats her down. And then she's looking at Ruijerd, and Ruijerd is ready for the next fight. And she wants to get stronger so that she can stand at his side when that time comes. I gotta get up to North. I gotta train. Ghislaine, tell me where I can get stronger. Let's go to the Sword Sanctum. Swing, 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 swing. Swinging the sword over and over and over and over and over and over again. Eventually, saving Ruijerd from Orsted. In that fight right there. Standing at his side, waiting for the moment the man god's going to strike again, constantly on the alert. When are they going to attack this family? I'm a part of Ruijerd's family now. I got to be ready for the next time the man god comes after this family. I'm the one that's supposed to protect the family. And here, finally... Oh, there's stuff around me. Oh, look at this cute kid that got a tail. Can I touch it? Kids in this world... Kids in this world have lives, dude. I cannot wait to finish this series as a whole and really deep dive these characters, because there's one constant theme with children of this world is they have no time to have fun. Aisha, no time to have fun. Norn, no time to have fun. Even the reincarnated Ruijerd, who is reincarnated as a man-child, no time to have fun. I think Ruijerd is the only one that actually does actively seek out to have fun, really. It's sad. However, as they were going around, she suddenly stopped. Sensing danger, Ruijerd stopped too. She was staring at someone, a middle-aged man who, without his helmet, gave a somewhat childish impression. It was Sander von Grander, the cover name for Alec Ryback, North God Kalman II. Eris's pupils contracted. Hey, don't! Eris dived forward with incredible speed and struck fiercely at Sander with her sword. Ah! Sander was quick too. He spun around and caught her blow at the hilt. That was when Ruijerd finally caught up. He grabbed Eris around the waist and apologized to Sander. Eris, whatever Sander's done, back down. For my sake. Sander, I'm sorry. I don't know what came over my husband. I mean my wife. Where do you think you're sticking your face? She kicked Ruijerd. Oops. He pressed his face against her butt. It was out of his control. Hey, you gotta get in a little bit of a rub. You might as well. I'm sorry, Eris, but you can't go around picking fights with people. Especially Sander. Well, he just fought alongside us. Like, yeah, concealing his identity and putting off stupid errors and talking like a cryptic sellsword got on my nerves too. But that's no reason to hit someone. I know that. Eris, you know, I've been seeing you differently lately. I thought you seemed calmer than you used to be. You've grown up, gotten more patient. You even learned how to teach sword fighting to other people. Norm was grateful to you for teaching her. It's not easy winning people's gratitude like that, you know? I see it as proof of your training at Sword Sanctum. Looking at you now, I never could have imagined that you'd grow up to be such a wonderful person. Ruijerd! Chill, dude! My notes right here. What is this trauma dump, dude? Ruijerd, chill the hell out. You're gonna... Okay. When she attacked him, I knew full well it was going to probably be a test. She was testing him. She wanted to see how strong he was. She just knew that he's a warrior. She smells him. That's the smell of a warrior. And yes, this is North God Kalman II. She knows this is a warrior. She probably wants to spar with him so bad. And we just got done talking about how Eris is finally loosened up and she's acting like she just wants to have fun. She's finally just wanting to have fun. And Ruijerd's like, I'm afraid she's going to lock herself up right here. I finally am having fun again. I'm looking around, I'm having fun. And let's have a fight real quick. Let's have a duel really quickly. And then Ruijerd like trauma dumps on her like, I expected so much of you. I was expecting you've changed so much. People rely on you now, Eris. Eris, you have to stop attacking people. Eris, I thought you were changed. It's like, chill the F out, Ruijerd. My God, dude, chill. What the hell is this trauma dump, dude? It was so weird. Like, Ruijerd, what is this weird conversation? Chill. Anyways, Ruijerd was getting a bit preachy. Yeah, no, but it was important. No, it's not that important. I mean, yes, I do agree that, okay, I agree that there's been a period of time where Eris was a bit too much. Attacking people out of the blue or being overly aggressive is not a good thing. Especially now that she is of the power level that she is at. She is at least emperor. But I would also think there's an element here where over this period of time, you will have a trust in her. Like, you would have some damn trust in her. That she wouldn't just one-shot somebody. Whatever had ruffled her feathers, she couldn't attack people out of the blue. When she swung her sword, it was on a different level than ordinary violence. Really? But Ruijerd. She looked happy, but also a bit disappointed. He had to convince her. Ah well, Master Ruijerd. Let's leave it at that. I expect Miss Eris wanted to see if the legend was true. The legend? They say you can't catch the second North God Kalman by surprise. Combat ready all the time, even if you attack from behind. He turns like he has eyes on the back of his head and does away with the threat before it strikes. That was when, the very beginning of the fight with Alec, he was literally deflecting and was slowly turning around to face Alec. This is like sign of that. Sander stuck a pose like he was cutting away an arrow fired at his back. Ignoring his puffery, Ruijerd had heard something like that before. It showed up in the middle section of the Epic of the North God. It was the bit where, after the world starts to take notice of the second North God Kalman, the monarch of the King Dragon Realm sends a bunch of assassins to eliminate him. Then he kills them all. The monarch of the King Dragon Realm? Have they ever labeled somebody as a monarch? And how far back is this? I have to take a note of that. This is something that I didn't really jump. I mean, it did jump out at me when I was reading the first time, but I got to go back and check my notes on that one. I'll maybe address it next Mushoku Monday. I did want to see if it was true. Master Ruijerd. Miss Eris was properly considerate. When I caught her strike, I understood that she planned to stop at the last second. Oh, right. In that case. But Eris, if you're going to do something like this, say something to me. You almost gave me a heart attack. That I understand. But again, the trauma dump's like too chill. That was a bit too much. If I had said something, he'd have noticed. Well, if she was planning on stopping at the last second, it was just a game, so it was fine. But what if Sander had gotten mad and gone to Gisa's side? He would have done it when you killed his son, Ruijerd. If that was enough for him to turn tail on you, he would have turned tail on you when Alex showed up, dude. Ruijerd thought he was overthinking it. Yeah? Joshing around between sword fighters always looked deadly to him. That is true. That is understandable. So you really can block attacks, even when they come from behind? Oh, well, I couldn't back then. that bit in the epic was just my ally having my back. Only, when I started taking the princesses, they all wanted to see if it was true. So I picked up naturally, keeping them at bay. It's like this legend of him, and he has to literally make the legend true. So that's it. Eris sounded moved by Sander's words. To be fair, when you're hearing some kind of inside story, it does kind of make you feel like you heard something amazing, even when the story itself is no big deal. Now, what would you say about? For real? I would be honored to try my skills against the fighter who defeated Galfalion. Sander's eyes flicked over to Ruijerd as he spoke and winked. What was that about? Maybe fan service? The second North God Kalman, hero of the Epic of the North God. He was a big deal. He probably ran to people like Eris a lot. Maybe he wanted to give her a special perk because she was Ruijerd's wife. At least, that's what Ruijerd thought. Yet, Sander's eyes stayed on him. You know, I'm not joining in, yeah? Eris would rather do it one-on-one too, right? Ruijerd wanted him to stop looking at him. Give the fangirl some attention. Eris might be a little grumpy after losing. But if Sander framed it as a teaching experience, she might be happy to take lessons. She was obedient to people who were stronger than her. I mean, that is true. I mean, when it's not in an actual battle of life and death, it definitely seems true. Oh no, I just have a request. In exchange for the bout. No problem, right? Eris is like, let's do it. You're right? Let's sign you up, right, Ruijerd? No problem, right, Ruijerd? She could wait until after Sander said what he wanted. I don't know if you'll be able to grant it. It's rather difficult, you see? Difficult, you say? Starting off like that. Something the second North God Kalman thought was difficult. Ruijerd wasn't sure if it was within his powers. But Ruijerd tried hard for the past 20 years to get this far. Even if he couldn't do it, he'd try to help. I think for you two, it just might be possible. You have to tell me what it is. Let's call it a surprise for when the fight's over. Depending on what it is, I'll see what I can do. Eris threw out a rapid fire of strikes at crazy speed, interspersed with feints and diversions, but every one of them got blocked. Ruijerd had mock fights with Eris, so he can tell that she was serious. As for Sander, Ruijerd wasn't sure. Given how comfortable he looked, it didn't seem to be going all out. That said, every now and then, a look flashed over his face like he was struggling, which implied that Eris was getting somewhere. They fought bout after bout. Nothing marked the start or finish. They just took their distance, then one, usually Eris, attacked. Then at some point, they suddenly stopped, and Sander was pointing his staff at her neck or vital spot, which probably meant that he was winning. Every 3 or 4 exchanges, Eris' sword found its mark. Whenever that happened, there was murmured ohs around them. At some point, an audience had grown. Of course, I could totally see that happening. Cliff, Ellen Lace, Zenoba, Ginger, Doga, some superb, and even doctors watched, wide-eyed. Fair enough, this was worth watching. You wouldn't see this fight between Eris and Ruijerd. It was too fast for Ruijerd to see anything other than that it was incredible. But Eris was essentially at the rank of Sword God. Close. I mean, her fight with Galfalion is a sign of how far she's come. But again, she wouldn't have done it without Ruijerd. But again, Ruijerd wouldn't have been able to take down Alec without everybody else. So, again, his titles don't mean anything. Titles really don't mean anything. She knew the theory well enough to teach sword fighting. She might not be on even footing with a sword god, who was the best in his class, but she was only a step behind him. I can agree with that. To Sander, she might have some weak points, but even accounting for those, she was winning 1 in every 3 or 4 matches. That's impressive. That is impressive. Even from the sidelines, it was clear straight away. You were watching to see how Eris would slip through Sander's defenses to get hit in. In short, it was an exciting match, even in an amateur's eyes. The bouts at last ended. Eris had taken 3 rounds in a row from Sander. Impressive. Good girl. She let out a deep breath and sat down on the ground. But again, these are duels. These are bouts. And technically, in a real fight, the first one, who won it? Like this, huh? Just like that. You live up to your name, Mad Sword King Eris. Your instincts are on another level. Despite the praise he was giving her, Eris' expression was hard. She sure hated losing. But she's learning. I bet she likes that. I bet she likes learning. Fighting somebody tough. She's learning. Yeah, it's like totally a Ruijerd thing or a Ghislaine thing. Did you get it? Did you learn something? Got it? You're adaptable. You avoid things that don't seem to work and actively pursue things that do. Even when the things you've seen work turn out to be false, you have the presence of mind to move on to the next thing without assuming it's simply bad luck. When defeat seems imminent, you don't give up and graciously accept it. You keep hunting for the path of victory to the last. I caught a glimpse of the North God style in your techniques. Who was your master? Hopper. Oh, him. How ironic. Whenever he saw something wasn't working out, he tried everything to find a clever way to use it. His growth was all twisted. Yeah? His secret weapon wasn't, though. True. At his core, he was earnest. I'm sure he knew it. His twistedness was his strength, but he couldn't rely on it at the very end. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Again, this is the guy that taught him. Without a doubt, this is the guy that taught him. Again, he was the one that apparently was the one that created the eccentrics. He taught this dude the way he was. But it at least implies here, the stuff that Auber used was tools that were to achieve that. It wasn't that Sander taught him all those weird things. These are the things that he used in order to grow. These are the things that he used as tools to get the job done. So it wasn't completely Sander. This is turning into a touching scene. Ruijerd didn't know the details, but maybe the North God Auber, whom Eris had fought in Oscar Kingdom, had been Sander's student. Right. Now that our bout is over, Sander clapped his hands and the onlookers scattered. They all looked pleased, like they'd seen something spectacular. Cliff was looking at his hands, squeezing them into a fist. Maybe he was thinking about... Maybe he's thinking sword fighting might be for him too. Ellen quickly wrapped her own hands around his fist to keep him in check. Cliff was awesome enough as it is. He didn't need to go learning sword fighting. I don't think so. Nothing has indicated to me that Cliff has ever thought about becoming a swordsman. I mean, it's possible. I mean, anything's possible. But to pick up a sword now in his life, it's way too late. I'm wondering if he's seen something with his eye. Pin in that one. I don't know, there's something telling me Andrew in like 4 chapters, Cliff's going to be like, I seen something when I seen them fight. Some sort of trigger. Some sort of symbol. Like something was identified in the battle. Like he's able to identify some move in the battle or some technique. Like he's able to see labels for techniques maybe. I don't know. I just feel like this is not him learning how to sword fight. Now then, Master Ruijerd, Miss Eris, returning to my humble request for you. Ruijerd wondered what he would throw. Sanders' mouth was squirming. He looked uncharacteristically nervous. It was like he wasn't sure how to proceed. I'd like you to introduce me once more to Master Ruijerd. But why? Ruijerd wondered if he was into dudes. He had a kid, so he probably liked women. Like your average guy. Maybe his taste changed when he got older. I mean, he could like both. But I mean, at this point, I'm already, yeah, he probably wants to know about his past or something. He's a geek for Ruijerd. Or maybe he picked up a few dodgy habits in the Oscar Kingdom. My gosh, dude. Maybe Ruijerd should report this to his mom to see how she'd react. I don't care. I'd appreciate it if you could ask him to talk to me about what happened the moment they'd finished off Laplace and sealed him away at last. This actually went down a very interesting route. North God Kalman I was your father, right? Didn't you ask him? My father was unconscious for the final moments and didn't know the details of what happened. I once endeavored to meet with Sir Perugius, and I tried to ask him, but he wouldn't answer me, and Sir Utapin met his end before I could meet him. Yeah, reading this the second time, I now fully know, and it was a surprise that he actually went and met Perugius. But right here, he's saying, yeah, he's met him before, and he tried to ask about this, and it all makes sense why he didn't answer. And it all makes sense why he's so finally get an answer on why he's so dead set on Laplace. That made sense. Sanders wanted to know about the end of the Laplace War, specifically the details of the final battle with the demon god Laplace. He hadn't been able to ask any of the 3 Godslayers, North God Kalman I, Armored Dragon King Perugius, and Dragon God Utapin, and had given up. Now he had been lucky enough to run into the last one, obscured by history. The man whose blow had helped turn the tide against Laplace in the final battle, Ruijerd Superdia of Dead End. Of Dead to Endo. What do you plan to do with the answer? Huh? Don't you want to know? This is a real heroic epic we're talking about. Not like cheap excuses for an epic they made up about me. I ran around all over the world, poking my nose into situations that looked like they could win me some fame, until things just sort of fell into place. No, this was the finale of the battle fought by true heroes, facing certain death against an enemy far beyond their powers, but fighting anyways to save the world. Ruijerd knew the story of the epic of the North God. Who knew how much writers in this world had exaggerated? Still, his heroic epic was incredible. The particulars varied from chapter to chapter, but broadly speaking, it was a tale of how he traveled the world vanquishing evil and rescuing the weak. He'd saved tons of people. Whatever he thought of it, Ruijerd thought it was amazing. In contrast, Ruijerd's story was a tragedy. He hadn't done what they said about him, but his family had been killed, people put in danger of extinction. He hadn't saved anyone or achieved anything, and it was because of that the Superb were forced to live in a restricted life. There was nothing he was proud of. Ruijerd doubted that he'd bring it up on his own accord. If Ruijerd asked him, he might tell him, but did he want to talk about it? Yeah, I don't think he would turn down Ruijerd, but at the same time, yeah, that is not a happy story. Ruijerd caught Eris's eyes sparkling. I want to hear about it too. Ruijerd would be lying if he said he didn't want to hear it himself. I mean, again, it's really the end. It's like the other stuff you don't have to talk about. It's really just the end. And the end is not something to be ashamed of. He put to end a very gruesome war. Ruijerd was in the middle of a mill. His house was very tidy. Calling it spotless would be going too far, but you could tell it was cleaned daily. Ruijerd wasn't the type to leave stuff lying around, but he also wasn't the type to be bothered with dusting corners. Even, you know how this is going to be. Come on, dude. Of course, his inexperience showed through a touch. If Aisha, who worked as a maid, saw it, she'd criticize it. Maybe not, but if she saw the dusty windsills, she'd roll her eyes. That was what happened with Linnea when she was working as their maid. Who was the mastermind behind this not perfectly clean room? It was her, sitting beside Ruijerd, serving something that looked like rice in a bowl. Norn Grey Rat. That's right. You win a Roxy doll, Ruijerd, for figuring that out. So stupid. Norn was beside Ruijerd, looking a bit taken aback to see them. Maybe she was surprised to see them all drop in while they were eating. What is it? Did something happen? Well, first of all, this gentleman says that he'd like to properly introduce himself to you. Ruijerd gestured to Sander, who stood straight up. I am Sander von Grander, Formerly known as the Second North God, Alex Ryback. Master Ruijerd Superdia. I can't tell you what an honor it is to meet the legendary hero who brought about victory in the Laplace War. At your service. Damn, dude, chill. He was a bundle of nerves. Unthinkable when you compare him to his usual nonchalance. It made sense from his point of view. The warrior who made it through the Laplace War would be a legend of his parents' generation. Ruijerd didn't get it, but presumably it was a bit like an older gang member in a delinquent manga who once achieved domination as the boss of the gang who rose up to the top in the time of the relative peace. He had bowed his head to the great achievements to those guys. It's like he was the boss that took down that big warring period. On behalf of the Spurred Warriors, I thank you for your aid in the battle. Ruijerd was a polite guy. He bowed, as something he'd forgotten to do before. Oh no, please, raise your head. Bowing at each other like that, they practically looked like Japanese. Eris, meanwhile, promptly took a seat and had Norn serve her some rice soup. She was bound to be hungry after all that exercise. Norn put a bowl before Ruijerd, so he began to eat. It was a solid effort. Not out of this world delicious, but Ruijerd doubted he'd do better. Well, he could do a little better. It was good enough to make him waffle on the point, and that was a mark of progress. Nornal's getting better at cooking. I wonder why. God, they're so drilling this into the whole thing, Zed. Just drill it in our heads. This is great. Thank you. Did you make it, Norn? Yes. Ruijerd looked at the soup. This was Norn's cooking. He wondered when she picked up advanced cooking techniques. He had to acknowledge that Norn became a grown girl. This world had homemaking training, just like back in his old world. She would know how to cook at least. Understanding how far she'd come, it suddenly tasted amazing. Little by little, Norn was growing up. It warmed Big Brother's heart to see it. Those feelings like a spice that amplified the flavor 100 times over. Little sister Nornal's getting a grown girl. It was just like yesterday she was born. It was just like the day after that she pushed me off of Dad when I was beating the crap out of him. Anyways, Ruijerd, I brought Sander here along because he had something he'd like to ask you about. He wants to ask me something? Yes, only you might not want to talk about it. Reese told Ruijerd about Sander's fanatical respect for him, for the time that he brought down Laplace, and how he wanted a full picture of how the fight had gone. He also dropped in some stuff about how Sander's father, North God Kalman, had first died in that fight, and now his son Sander wanted to pin down how he really died, and if called for it, take revenge. Plus, how he couldn't even talk about his life until now without weeping. It's so stupid, dude. Ruijerd, yes? Why are you telling such lies? I just got carried away. It was common knowledge the North God Kalman had survived the battle with the demon god Laplace. Furthermore, afterwards, he infiltrated the demon king Atofe's abode alone, cursed her, then married cursed her. Is that true? Did he really curse her? I mean, yes, they did imply that he did something to overcome her, which was impossible. I don't know if this is a joke, cursed her, or if it's like he actually, in the tale, he literally cursed her. I don't remember if they said anything like that. It could be the idea that he just cursed her as in that he cursed her with love. Later still, he journeyed around the world and finally died in the King Dragon Mountains. I wonder what the story is behind that. Like he just traveled around and then just croaked? Did somebody kill him up there? Just he was old and, I mean, he was a human. So it's not that he would live long. Heh, you never change, do you? If a sleazy guy like Ruijerd had lied to old Ruijerd, he might have gone ballistic. Now he understood Ruijerd was joking. A sign he trusted him. I mean, true. Without a doubt, Ruijerd has changed a lot since he first met him. I mean, that's a given. Ruijerd gave him hope. He was in a state of no hope. Ruijerd gave him hope. Well, maybe Sander's reasons for wanting to know aren't as grand as that, but if it's all right with you, I hope you'll talk to him. It's nothing special. Ruijerd began his tale. The curse of the spears lifted from Ruijerd, only for him to fall under another curse. The curse for vengeance. Driven on by that curse, he made haste to Laplace, only to find when he arrived that the battle had already begun. It was almost concluded when he had gotten there. North God Kalman was down, and Perugius' 12 familiars all but snuffed out, save for one. Perugius himself was on his knees, heavily wounded. Only Atofe valiantly fought on, but it was clear that Laplace was overpowering him. Laplace, by comparison, was tired, but he still had fight left in him. Even in the face of this, Ruijerd kept his cool. Laplace had deceived the Superb and driven them nearly to extinction, but Ruijerd set aside his hatred and closely observed his opponents. Laplace was strong, but Ruijerd had some vague knowledge of the three combatants. Back when he had been in his right mind, he crossed swords with Kalman and Utapin. Interesting. Both were powerful fighters. Utapin was so strong that even Ruijerd had no hope of defeating him. Surprised he survived. Surprised he crossed swords with them, especially Utapin, and survived. The Skyfolk woman, besides Perugius, looked like a fighter with some skill too. Despite all that, Laplace was going strong. He was tired, but he could still fight. If Ruijerd lashed out in anger, he might fall. And the surprising thing about all of this is this is a split. This is the split Laplace. That puts it into a much... I mean, after everything that's kind of unfolded, and the more expansion we do in the story, it's more crazy to think about. This is a split person. This is a half of somebody. That's insane. That these three individuals are struggling and going to lose. Despite all that, Laplace was going strong. He was tired, but he could still fight. If Ruijerd lashed out in anger, he might fail. So he observed Laplace, looking for an opening to be sure to end him. Then he found something in Laplace's body. The something raced around inside him. Ruijerd didn't know what it was, but the instincts born of long experience, he guessed it was Laplace's weak point. There was no time to confirm this. Laplace attacked to finish Perugius, only for Utapin to come between them and take the blow. It would prove fatal. Victory was now hopeless. Laplace smiled triumphantly. That moment, Ruijerd snuck up behind him and struck. His target was something he had sensed. The result was sensational. Right away, Laplace was racked with pain, and in a blind rage, he hit back at Ruijerd. He didn't die at once, but something changed. Ruijerd could do no more. Laplace overpowered him. His demon eye dulled Ruijerd's movement. His fist broke through his guard to break bone, and he easily brushed off Ruijerd's attacks. Laplace shut him down, beating Ruijerd to a pulp as though he were a child. Again, half power. Whack! Thinking he was finished, Ruijerd threw himself at Laplace in desperate suicidal attack. Just then, the ground glowed. Blue-white light lit up the surroundings. It was a magic circle. Ruijerd looked up and saw Utapin with both hands on the ground, chanting something. Laplace cried out, "It can't be," as the magic circle blazed with light. Ruijerd was blinded. Even then, his third eye saw Laplace's body and mana tear apart and scatter. His ears caught Laplace's dying scream. "Don't think that was enough to kill me. Man, I'll kill you. I'll destroy you. Just wait, you damn bastard. I'll..." So much in this chapter. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Actually, let's go back a second because I thought that it would kind of wrap up, and I forgot this part. Something was running around inside him. The weak point. Something was running around inside him. He found something in Laplace's body. The something raced around inside him. Ruijerd didn't know what it was, but his instincts and experience told him it was his weak point. It can't be a sticky, can it? There's no way it's a sticky. It can't be a sticky. A Vita? Because Vita was the only one that was able to put... Well, okay, correction here. It can be a sticky, a very powerful of the sticky tribe, inside another Vita, basically, inside of him, giving him protections and giving him extra strength and giving him extra, resistances and whatnot. Maybe it's a very powerful one that we just don't know about yet that was giving him strength. And then when Ruijerd hit it, it got rid of whatever that was empowering him with and strengthening him with, and it allowed them to finally get in a killing blow. I don't think it would have been like a Vita, like one that was taking over Laplace. That I can't see being a case there. But it seems like this is something that took down some of his strength, some of his defenses. And again, he was leading them, so it could easily have been one of them. Or it could be one that just parasitized inside of him and he just didn't know about it. But it being like his weak point, it had to have been something that was giving him a lot of strength or a lot of something. Yes, it could be something else that was maybe possessing him. Some sort of spell or something like that had to be destroyed. But I wonder if it was one of them. I wonder if it was something that was parasitizing him. But yeah, right here. He does that. And then Utapin comes in there, uses the ability. And then his dying scream. "Don't think that was enough to kill me. Man, I will kill you." Now, when I first read this, I'm thinking, okay, man, he doesn't like mankind. He hates man. That's what his driving force is. He wants to destroy it. Again, when they split, this one side just hates mankind, wants to destroy it. The technique side went off and wanted to kind of get techniques and whatnot for the man god. And my whole thought process there was like that split there of the man god. It was this thought process that I had. But he says, I'll kill you. Don't think that was enough to kill me. I will kill you. I'll destroy you. Not humankind. You. Just wait. You damn bastard. He is talking about the man god. Laplace wants to kill the man god. Hates him. Wants him dead. And again, I can see that being the reason why he wants to kill all humans, because he probably feels that mankind itself is a tool of the man god, and he wants to kill any possible disciple of the man god, anything connected to the man god, seeing man god as being a god of the humans themselves. But I think his ultimate goal is to kill the man god. He wants to kill him. Again, this is the person that orchestrated him being split, him being broken in half. He wants the man god dead. But I kind of want to know more about why he would have thought that this path that Laplace was taking was going to eventually lead to the death of the man god. What was that path that he thinks is going to lead to that victory? And this really does play into my theory that I believe eventually Ruijerd, or at least Orsted, will eventually have the aid of Laplace. My theory I think I had was that Laplace himself, or possibly the combined, that they were going to figure out a way of recombining him in order for him to regain his sanity. And then eventually in the future, he was going to aid Ruijerd. Because it got into that whole thing where we were getting into when Nanahoshi was talking about the future. And my thought process there was that there's a possibility that because somebody had the ability to kind of affect things in time, that they were using Laplace's power to affect Ruijerd's mana supply. And that was what was disturbing the actual sending process there. And so I'm convinced that they were utilizing Laplace, his mana pool, and utilizing his control over his aspects to affect Ruijerd in the past. No doubt. Eventually, this is another sign that Laplace, once the man got dead, they will work together. They will work together at some point. Those were Laplace's final words. I don't know exactly what the technique was. It's called Draconic Remnant. The spell Sir Perugius revived from the ancient tomes to use against Laplace in the final battle. Is that so? Another teenage edgelord's name? Maybe the Dragon Folk couldn't contend with anything less. Not that Ruijerd was against them himself. Well now, so it did get used then. It was Sir Utapin that casted it. Ah, of course. It must have been setting off the spell that led to Sir Utapin's death so soon after the final battle. I'm sure the plan was for the task of setting it off to fall to Perugius. So yes, of course. Sir Perugius wouldn't speak of it. He was ashamed that he let them down. Perhaps he sees himself as having murdered Sir Utapin. Yes, it's all coming together. Click. Yep. Yep. When I read that, I thought that I was right there with Sander. Click. It all makes sense why... Oh, partly. It all makes sense why Perugius is so dead set on waiting for Laplace. He is so devoted. He cannot wait. Just sitting there waiting. Forget everything else. His friend died because he was too weak. And now he feels like it's his responsibility to be ready for it next time. Which, yes, does imply here that in the end, he will die. This means that when Perugius fights him, he will probably die. Now, I'm curious if it is an instant kill thing, like when you use it, you sacrifice yourself, or if it is just an aspect that Utapin was so used at that moment, took that fatal blow, and used that spell. He was so drained he died. Not that the spell itself kills you. It's just that it uses a lot of energy, and that's why it's kind of like a 2-strike on him. Sander was satisfied. He was muttering to himself like an otaku. That was a bit scary. It reminded Ruijerd of his past self. There was still some holes in Ruijerd's understanding of the story, but the gist seemed to be Perugius was supposed to use the technique in the final showdown. He couldn't because Laplace knocked the crap out of him. On top of that, Utapin had taken a hit for him. Then on top of that, Utapin had activated the magic circle and passed away suddenly as a result. Ruijerd felt it would be unbearable. He'd probably not be able to go outside until Roxy came and comforted him. It made sense he spent 400 years wandering the skies, waiting for sign of Laplace's return. He probably sworn this time he'd do the deed himself. Huh? If you cast a final spell, doesn't that mean Laplace died? They said they thought they killed him, but later, Sir Perugius searched Laplace's castle and discovered that he had ensured that if he died, he'd be reincarnated and return. That's why he started saying Laplace was only sealed away. Right. Ruijerd's expression was stormy. Yeah, there's that sign right there. Even though he was split, he still has that reincarnation spell, and he put it into effect before this battle. Which, yes, does kind of answer the question mark to me that I had for quite a while. I think I answered it at some point, but confirms it here again. That, yeah, this doesn't mean that he always has a reincarnation to always happen. It doesn't mean that no matter how many times they kill him, he just kind of spreads and comes back. He has to cast that spell to ensure that he'll be able to reincarnate, to ensure that his body will split and come back together at some point. It is a spell that, again, this original dragon god actually created. Ruijerd's expression was stormy. He'd be thinking that when Laplace returned, he'd have to fight too. Even if Laplace would eventually come back, reincarnation meant that he was currently dead. They had killed him once. Ruijerd apologized and thought for laughing at the 3 not god slaying heroes. That was a long time ago. I don't know what happened later. After that, I said my farewells and went back to the Demon Continent. Ruijerd spent the last 400 years struggling to save the Superb. Hearing this story properly, Ruijerd felt that while his life had been hard, it was wonderful that he found a place to live for the rest of his life. They were on track to restore the reputation of the Superb. So in Ruijerd's lifetime, people would stop telling scary stories to children. Ruijerd cackled at himself at the thought that kids everywhere would be able to refuse to go to bed. Thank you for telling such a valuable story. I never thought I'd get to meet you in a place like this, you know? I'm overwhelmed. I've solved a lifelong mystery. Sander bowed his head over and over again, face glowing. As she ate, Eris listened in interest. In the past, she would have butted in and asked for the next part in excitement. Perhaps she knew that she was embroiled in a legendary fight of her own. Come to think of it, over the years, Eris had traveled to all sorts of places, had all sorts of adventures, fought all sorts of enemies. For the most of the time, she tagged along with Perugius, so maybe it wasn't fully satisfying. Really? But yeah, I mean, Eris is in the end going to have some epic tales to tell herself. Well, that's enough for... Sander had begun to stand up. Well met. The door was blown off its hinges. Eris jumped to her feet and kicked aside the incoming door. Apparently has an actual physical door. I was just imagining like a tent, like a drape for the door. It's got an actual door. Then used the momentum to spin around, stepping in to draw her sword. She swung down to cut the intruder down the middle. High-headed, aren't we? I recognize you as a champion just for that. The intruder caught the blade between her hands. The trespasser had fully stopped Eris's ultra-fast strike. Settle down. I only came to meet the master of this house. It was the immortal demon king, Atofe right back. Probably the most blockheaded person in the world. She was so blockheaded, she even put Eris and Kishirika to shame. She made criminy, dude. Oh my gosh, you insult your wife so bad. Or your husband, I'm sorry. It's been too long, Ruijerd Superia. Her mouth twisted into a smile as she glowered at Ruijerd. Looking every bit the Demon King she was, her voice was slippery as a snake as she spoke Demon God tongue. It has, Demon King Atofe. Ruijerd replied, also in Demon tongue. A good thing to note here, because Norn's really confused later. It's important to note this, because Norn is confused later. I remember you well. You might not think it, but I've got good memory. It was when I was chasing you around the Babinos region, wasn't it? Ruijerd was silent. To think you ended up building your nest in a place like this. Ruijerd was sweating. Even the great Ruijerd was uncomfortable around Atofe. Your Majesty, just a second. Let's all calm down. The rampage of the Superb and the Laplace War was all engineered by Laplace himself. What did you say? Ruijerd told Atofe about how the Superb were cursed. Everyone cried, storyteller and listeners both, as he told her about the trap set by the diabolical Laplace. The Superb were innocent. Atofe listened, nodding like she was taking it in. Shut up! You're not making sense, so shut up! He must have made it too complicated. But you see, one day, Laplace sprung a trap on the Superb and cursed them all with these spears, and they slaughtered their own people. There was a moment that Ruijerd himself killed his family and his son, and it was only that moment that he finally regained consciousness, and he was attacked by Laplace's army. They sent them to finish them off. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's so sad. Sanders over there probably bawling his eyes out. Oh my gosh. Norn's crying over there. Actually, no, because Norn probably doesn't understand what he's saying because he's talking in demon tongue. Toph's like, shut up, I don't understand. Shut up. What is it? What? Again, it's like, we're going back to the old, right here. We had this crazy moment where she was actually like being very smart about the whole situation with the ogre god. We're back to the old Atofe right here. Let's go back. He must have made it too complicated. Ruijerd looked to Sander for help, and he nodded, as if to leave it to him. Master Ruijerd, it was either just before Superb received the magic spears, or perhaps simultaneously to that my mother was sealed away. She doesn't know what you're talking about. Oh, right. Then why were you chasing him? She won't remember the reason, I'm sure. Right, Mother? I have a good memory, remember? Sure. I do remember. It was the peasants. The peasants asked me to help. That stood to reason. Likely what happened was that Ruijerd tried to help some child. Some people got misinterpreted that he was attacking the child, and even though they feared the Demon King, they relied on her. So they appealed to her to do something about that end. Yeah, I can see that. Well, anyways, it's all Laplace's fault, so please, forgive him this time.
Very well. I'm not like those stingy dragon folk.
It's like, that's the one thing that she's got. I'm not like them.
He shall have my forgiveness. But, Ruijerd, the villagers here, they're so feeble. I can't believe they're your people. What happened to the tough Superb?
They all died.
Oh? Come to think of it, I don't see the Superb on the demon continent anymore.
Ruijerd didn't say anything. He wore a look of understanding. He realized logic didn't work with... he realized that logic didn't work on Atofe. She might not be even aware that she was persecuting the Superb. By hating her, he'd just be making himself look stupid. There was no way Atofe would plot something insidious like persecution. Yeah, I mean, just hunting down is different than persecution. I mean, end result's kind of the same. Yeah, I can see the difference here. She was more the type to crush her opponent in a head-on war.
Sir Superdia, I think highly of you. If you become my servant, I shall spare your friends in the village.
Mother, you say spare, but what exactly are you planning on doing if he turns you down? Surely, you aren't saying you're going to kill them all, right? You know no one here will stand for that. Yeah, I mean, this is Atofe. This is what she does. I can see her doing this. But again, Sander, Mom, you're not doing that.
Yeah, I'm not.
I love it. This dynamic is so great. I just want like 50 volumes of nothing but Sander and Atofe going around doing stuff together. I want the Meet the Rybacks series of novel series, the Meet the Rybacks novel series. Sander's gaze was sharp. He curbed his air of whimsical nonchalance, and there was an icy chill in his face as he glared at her. I see why you want him as a servant. I grew up hearing from Dad about the strength of the Superb warriors. It makes sense that you'd want to recruit the leader of those warriors. But the way you do it is important, Mother. Thought you might struggle with that. Atofe actually listened to her son. It was impressive. Sander has smoothed out the situation over a matter of seconds. On that note, Master Ruijerd, what do you say about studying the North God style? Reese hoped that he wouldn't say yes. He'd be dragged to the fort and across. It was a fraudulent solicitation.
Don't do it! Ruijerd, no! No!
But I mean, it's cool. We're probably due for another fight eventually. And so yes, Ruijerd getting some training would be great. Over the period of volumes, like the earlier volumes, Ruijerd was like so freaking OP. The only thing that really kind of just threw him in his face was Orsted. But here lately, we're kind of bringing him down a couple pegs as not like the greatest thing ever. So it'd be good to kind of see him get stronger. And I think North God is actually a really good style for him because, again, it seems like it's very flexible what kind of sword you use or weapon you use. Everything else is seemingly around sword weapons. And yes, if he goes and trains under some other practice, they're going to see a spear and go, I don't know how to use that thing. Unless he goes to the Skyfolk, you'd make North King and North Emperor in no time. Damn. And if you're one of the leading disciples of the North God style, that would improve the world's impression of the Superb. The ruler of the Osra Kingdom is close with Master Rudius. So as a leading disciple of the North God style, you can get a knighthood, even as Superb. Here's where it kind of falls apart. It's like, no, he doesn't want to leave there. He doesn't want to go to the Osra Kingdom. Sander's sales pitch rolled off his tongue. Reese could see an ulterior motive. He wanted to share the workplace with the guy he looked up to. That's exactly where it's going. Reese didn't see anything wrong with that. In the event that Behero Kingdom refused to take the Superb, they could agree to move to the Osra Kingdom. Then Ariel's authority would protect them. They'd have to think a bit about where they would live, but one idea was the forest north of the kingdom. They went through there when they infiltrated the Osra Kingdom in secret. That could work. It didn't belong to any country in particular, so surely no one would complain. But Rudius didn't think the Superb would want to move again. But if a little more patience would make them safe, that had to be the better option. I appreciate the offer, but I don't intend to leave the village for some time. I see. Excuse me. I got a little ahead of myself. The village was a big project itself. People didn't like to leave once they put down roots. Ruijerd want to give this place his best shot.
Be that as me. Ruijerd Superdia, I am here to see you.
Yes.
Be not afraid. We are allies this time. A demon king clashes with the other strong warriors of the same side. But deep down, she acknowledges their strength. Yes, that's right. I acknowledge your strength. I wasn't lying when I said I think highly of you. The Superb warriors were mighty after all.
Yes, they were outstanding warriors. Maybe it was because Sander had told her off, but Atofe was being pretty friendly by her typical standards. It does seem like that. It's like, and again, there's a respect there. I think there's a mutual, like, warriors respect there. Yes, initially it's like join me, and I'll teach you. I won't take them out. And he's like, dude, you can't do that, Mom. Okay, I just want to fight him. There's a warrior's respect here. I think that, again, this is way back in the day before she got knocked away. He was a warrior. He was of this clan of warriors. That's why Laplace went to them. They were the strongest warriors. Ruijerd doubted that she'd come looking for a fight. It's like she caught sight of a familiar face and come to say hello or something. Suddenly, Ruijerd felt someone's gaze. He looked back to see Norn looking this way. Her expression troubled. She was curled up, so he hadn't noticed, but she was sitting right between Atofe and Ruijerd, her eyes pleading for Ruijerd to do something. He shook his head to tell her it was out of his hands, at which she looked like she might cry. Poor Nornal. It's like in that picture, poor Nornal's over there like, Ruijerd, big brother, do something. What's going... And again, by all accounts, it kind of indicated earlier, and I'm assuming nothing changed at any point, they were talking in demon tongue. She has no clue what they're talking about. Just this lady like, we're gonna do this. And then over here he's like, blah, 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 blah. And she doesn't know a single damn thing they're saying other than the fact that this lady looks scary as hell. Like, what is she doing here? Now, Norn has been seeing Atofe around the village. They've been there for a while now. But this is finally the moment where she comes busting into that door. The door comes off its hinges. Eris retaliates. She blocks it and stands before Ruijerd and just starts talking gibberish that Norn doesn't understand. Now, Norn could have learned some demon tongue at some point, but the assumption here is that she doesn't understand what they're saying. And that is chapter 8. What a fantastic chapter. Just way too much cool stuff in here. Like I said before, I can't get enough of the Ryebacks. Like every time they bring up Atofe, every time they, especially now that we have Sander in the picture, like their chemistry just kind of works so well. And it's mostly the fact that, yes, Sander can keep her in check. Mom, chill. Mom, chill. It's way too much fun. But yes, I think the biggest juicy bit in this whole chapter was, of course, everything around Laplace, Udipin, and Kalman. Like, getting to find out what actually happened there with Laplace. It's just, again, it just finally answers everything about Perugius. Not everything about Perugius. It answers why he doesn't like Laplace. Why he is so desperate. He's constantly watching for that moment that Laplace pops back up. He wants to do what Udipin wasn't supposed to do. He was supposed to do that. That was my role. I was supposed to do that. And again, yeah, probably blaming himself for his death. But it just kind of sucks that we didn't get an answer as to why he hates the demon so much. I was hoping there would be an answer to that. And yes, that could be just based on the fact that, yes, Udipin died there. That because of his mistake, because of that battle against a demon, he lost his friend. And yes, he regrets the fact that his friend did it and not him. That whole regret around that then fuels his hatred for demons because it involved a demon. Now, I've always kind of, excused the idea of Perugius, mainly in the idea that I feel like he's almost like a person that went to war against a certain nation, a certain race, and again, seen many people die, seen the tragedy that came from that battle, and so thus they don't have a trust for that race. It's just something that's sort of born from a war. They're that longtime veteran that had to go through grueling battles and seen the darker nature of humankind, and in this case, the demon kind. It can easily be kind of answered in that regard. But either way, again, I was kind of hoping a little bit more answer. We might get more. I don't know. This is what late in the whole series is. That's like it scares me that might be one of those questions that never really gets answered. It's kind of just left up to your interpretation, and that could be the interpretation. Just the regret there. The regret kind of feels everything. It feels that distrust and whatnot. But either way, it is what it is. But gosh dang, just a really good set of chapters. Again, everything around Eris was fantastic as well. I just love finally seeing Eris unwind again. Just Eris acting normal. And again, that might be that violent, silly side of her just jumping at somebody. But just, again, seeing the old Eris again. Like I said earlier, this whole time kind of seeing her interact with people and interact with Perugius and kind of just being stiff. Always kind of go around going, no, you're strong. No, I'm strong. What are we fighting next? What are we doing next? It's never like, again, going, oh my gosh, they got a tail. Going up there, wanting to grab the tail. Let me grab the tail. Again, the old Eris coming back there. It's just, it feels good. And again, that was kind of why I got so mad at Ruijerd doing that. It's like, dude, stop. Let her be Eris. Well, it's almost like me saying, we'll deal with the repercussions if she accidentally cuts somebody in half. I just want Eris to be the old Eris. Can we have that? I did end up looking up the whole thing with the monarch of the King Dragon Realm. That technically, yes, way back in like volume 6, it did bring up the monarch. Well, it brought up a monarch of the King Dragon Realm, which was Kajik. Now I'm kind of wondering if it's Kajik or it was supposed to be Kajakut. Because there's no U in there. But in volume 6, they mention a Kajakt, Kjakt. No U in there, so no Kajakut. Kajakt was a monarch of the King Dragons, or at least mentioned there as that. And so I'm kind of wondering if that was the monarch that sent the assassins after him, or at least according to that tale. Again, we mentioned several times in this entire chapter that they kind of blow this stuff up, so it might not be true. The assassins might not be true. Again, that's the question mark. He says there was this story about how they came and attacked me, and I was able to fend them off, even though they struck me from the back. And so I had to learn how to fight that way because it was not a true tale. But yes, in Volume 6, it does note that as, is the origin of the 48 magical swords that were scattered around the world. Places mentioned in the line of the Epic of the North God. So I'm wondering, because it was mentioning that with the magical swords, if Kajakt right there was the monarch that he was talking about. I don't know, not a big deal there. I was just kind of curious if they've ever mentioned them. But yeah, other than that, I did forget to talk about the gravity magic, which, yes, during the time where Ruijerd was going out on his date with Eris, I got kind of sidetracked there. But in that little segment, he does talk about wanting to master gravity magic. He says, then there was that spell, the spell that I used during my end of the fight with Alec. I thought that was probably gravity magic, but I wanted another clue. That fight had driven home just how powerful gravity magic was. So it seems like, despite the fact in Chapter 7, he's literally going, did I use gravity magic? No, it might have been his sword just kind of finally triggered and it threw him off. Like like I was mentioning there, my assumption was that he was using the gravity magic from the sword, and then while he's fighting with Ruijerd is turning it off, and then it just goes off. Like Ruijerd keeps shutting it down, and so it just finally, the feel comes back into it and it kicks off because Ruijerd just turns off the stone of absorption. But now it seems like in Chapter 8, he's like, yeah, it was definitely a spell that I used. It's like back there, I'm like, I'm not sure if it was his sword, if it was me. Now it was me. I need to figure it out. It's fine, but at the same time, that's not, my assumption was going to be that it was the sword that went off. But it was going to be one of those things where if he does, use the sword and see how it feels, he might be able to replicate it. Again, because everything until now, whenever he makes spells, whenever Ruijerd makes a spell, again, anytime it's something else, he has to take the incantation, do the incantation, try it, and then go, okay, now I know how it works. Now I can mess with it. And that's how he made lightning, or his version of lightning, and where he just shocks something with a small spell rather than, developing the clouds and a massive, lightning strike. So I figured with this whole situation, it was going to be an aspect of having to see how it feels by using the sword itself. And that could have been what it is. He could have felt how the gravity felt when it was used on him. And thus in his mind, he now has a sense of it, and thus he can replicate it. But here again, he's just kind of saying, it was definitely me. And now I need to figure out how it works. Either way, it's fine. It just feels like weird that it suddenly changes from one chapter to another. No, it was definitely me. It wasn't the sword. I got to figure it out. But we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, with that said, hope you guys enjoyed this Mushoku Monday. As per usual, greatly appreciate you guys' support, your kind words, everybody that dropped by for the premiere. Hey, chat. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Monday. Thank you guys so much for dropping by. But I was told that I can look at the cover now. I forgot. I was told as a recording of this, I could actually look at the cover, which, as I thought, the one that is doing the Star Wars pose is, in fact, the main character, Alec. The one doing the Star Wars pose is, in fact, the main character, Alec. But yeah, they got Eris on there. She's looking awesome, really fantastic. And having Ruijerd right behind her, I think that's actually really cool. The fact that the cover really does kind of hit home Eris with Ruijerd always behind her. It kind of has that feeling of him kind of being her shadow, being right behind her. Really freaking awesome. And yeah, Ruijerd over there with he definitely looks like he has both arms are the Atofe arms. And it looks like he's holding out what I would assume is probably the gauntlet with the stone of absorption. We got Sander in the background looking awesome. And then we have Rip, the sword god Galfalion, just up in the clouds, looking off in the distance. See, this is spoilers. This is why you're not supposed to look at covers. If I actually looked at this, I would assume he's dead. Now, granted, going into this volume, I assume they were going to fight him to death. I didn't really think that everything was pointing to the signs that he's not going to live through this. But still, this is the typical bye everybody pose. That's the I'm in the clouds, take care of everybody pose. He's dead right there. So yeah, that's massive spoilers. So again, I always like not looking at these. Again, I kind of get a sense of what's on it, but I don't know what's actually on it. I think that's pretty much it. The background's pretty much the ravine. It looks like they're all in the ravine. I'm surprised that you can't see any of the earth dragons in there. I think that's it though. Really cool. Really, 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 really awesome cover. I would probably like to get this printed on a disc plate up here. I think it eventually, when I do finish the entire series, it'd probably be very expensive. But I'd probably want to get like a full set of all. I don't know about all volumes, but I think I would like get a lot of the volumes as disc plates. But anyhow, that's it for this Mushoku Monday. Thank you guys for dropping by. Until next time, y'all take care. Her voice was slippery like a snake as she spoke demon god tongue. Her voice was slippery as her voice was slippery like a snake as she spoke demon god. On the fourth day, Eris and Ruijerd. On the fourth day, Ruijerd had a date. Let this divine power be a satisfying nourishment. Let this divine power be a nurse. Let this power be as a